Hey, welcome to my guitar improvisation loop series. Today we're going to look at Blue Bossa, classic jazz standard. We're going to talk about some of the theory, what the chord progressions is, some of the scales that you can use, and then we'll have a loop where you can practice your improvisation in this video with the chord diagrams and the scales and all that stuff on the screen. Okay, this song is in the key of C minor. This is a great one for working on your music theory. If you're familiar with the cycle of fourths, Autumn Leaves is the one that always comes to mind with that song, where we're playing a 2 in a major key, a 5, 1, then a 4. Then in the relative minor, we play a 2, which is a minor 7 flat 5, 5, 1. Really a great progression. Well, this kind of does both of those things, a 2, 5, 1 in a major key and a 2, 5, 1 in a minor key, just like Autumn Leaves and so many other songs, but it splits them up into two different keys rather than them being relative like Autumn Leaves would be. We're putting them into two distinctly different key signatures. So we're in the key of C minor. C minor is the 1 chord. The 4 chord would be F minor. And those are both minor chords. Then the 2 is D minor 7 flat 5, and the 5 is G7. So that could have been the song. I mean, a lot of songs that do only that. 1 chord, 4, 2, 5, 1. And one thing you can keep in mind is that the 2 and the 4 are relatives of each other. They're from the subdominant family, so you can kind of substitute them over each other. We could even play one or the other. Or when you're soloing, that's good news. If you're not sure about a minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio, just play an F minor arpeggio, and that's gonna match it pretty well. So that's the first half of the song. Then it modulates up a step and a half and plays a minor 7th chord here, only now, instead of that being the 1 chord in a minor key, it's the 2 chord, and we are in the key of D flat major. Here's your 5, that's A flat dominant 7th, and then D flat major 7. So that's a classic 2, 5, 1 progression in a major key, but it's in a key that's not the relative major of C minor, which would have been E flat major. We're in the key of D flat, so it kind of went down a whole step from what the relative major would have been. So look at the whole thing. We have C minor, then F minor, D minor 7, flat 5, G7. We're gonna dress these chords up in a second, and then resolving back to C minor, or C minor 7, and then bring that up here to E flat minor 7, to A flat 7, to D flat major 7. This is a really interesting segue back into the key of C minor. If we take this major 7th and change only one note, now we have, all of a sudden, instantly, a D minor 7 flat 5. These are two chords that are so absolutely different, a major 7th chord and a minor 7 flat 5, but all we have to do is change one note to get the other one. So that's a great portal into another key, and you might see that in some other jazz songs as well. So ending here, go up here. Now we're back to that being the 2, and if that's the 2, then here's the 5, G7. We know we're back in the key of C minor, and then C minor. And then at the end of this, we have a quick turnaround where we do the 2, 5, split in one measure, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're back to the beginning. The song is made up of 16 bars. Only 4 of those are in the key of D flat major. The rest of them are all in C minor. So this is called Blue Bossa, and I'm using a bossa nova rhythm. You don't have to play it that way. I like to do it this way sometimes. One of these beats, doesn't matter how you play the rhythm. But I was playing a bossa nova, which sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and playing the thumb on the 1 and the 3, and we have some syncopation here. 1, 2, 3, and. But there's so many ways that you can do it. So notice here I'm playing a minor 9th chord. This is a diatonic chord. Of course, you can play it a million different ways if you know how to play C minor. We can play it this way, but if you play a minor 9th, I think that sounds great, and it's consistent with the key. This note D is in the key of C minor, and why not? That's how that would sound up here. I think that sounds really cool. And then F minor, you could play a 9th on that as well, up on top, but I just played it the normal way. D minor 7 flat 5, we'll keep that, but keep your pinky down here and play G7 like this. We've sharped the 5. Instead of a perfect 5th, we have a raised 5th. Could also call that a flat 13, but let's call it a sharp 5. So G7, sharp 5, and then we take these 2 fingers down and they just kind of morph into this C minor 9. So to me that sounds better than just playing the straight chords. So I did the same thing on the next part. I played a minor 9th. So a minor 9th chord can be used for the 2 in a major key or the 1 in a minor key, which is the 6 in the major key. All these numbers can be very confusing, I realize that. We have that, and I kept the pinky down for this 5 chord, this A flat 7, so that's a 13th to that chord. Keep the pinky down and you got D flat major 7, so we have a nice little pivot finger or something we can keep an anchor on. That's E minor 9, our 2 chord, A flat 13, that's the 5 chord, and then D flat major 7. And most of this chord is already done for us here. I play the G7 again that way, and then we're back to this. And then we got our turnaround. Okay, how to solo over this. One of the most challenging things at first when you're learning how to improvise is when keys change, so that can really throw us for a loop. One entryway into doing this, if that's gonna give you trouble, is to just use one scale shape and then move it down 2 frets and back again. So let's start with this one. This is the A form minor scale. We can call it the C form major scale. Some people call it the Phrygian box, Phrygian scale. That's gonna be the notes of C minor. Of course, there's something weird is gonna happen there, which I'll talk about in a second. And then when it goes to the key of D flat major, move it down 2 frets. This scale is gonna match the 2, 5, 1 in that key. So in this box, we already saw what a lot of the chords can be. Here's our 2, it can also be a minor chord. I'm not doing it this way at the moment. I just want to keep us in this box for now. So there's our 1 chord. Now the 4 would look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. We already know it's F minor, and that's going to be the D form. So it's living right inside that shape. Want to make it a minor 7th chord. There we go. And then of course we know our 2. I'm still in the box. I shifted a little bit, and then here's our 5, however we want to do it. And then back to the 1. Okay, when we move down 2 frets, what's the 2, 5 in the major key? Well, in that same box, the minor root is here and the major is there. So let's move it down, minor, major. Sure enough, there's D flat. Here's a D flat major chord. There's our 1 chord. The 2 would be the next note up from the 1. 1, 2. Okay, here's a minor 7th. E flat minor 7, that's the chord. The 5 would look like this. That's based on the G form. So what I'm getting at is it's all inside of that box. Everything is there if you want to play the arpeggios. Okay, so we have the 2, we got the 5, the number of ways to do that. Okay, and then to the 1. And then we're back to the key of C minor, 2, 5, 1. So if you have trouble with changing keys, I would do that for soloing. So we're just gonna stay in this box. And then when we have that key change, just move down 2 frets and play the same exact shape. That makes it easier to process until you get good at playing all over the neck in C minor and then all over the neck in D flat major. 3 things to mention before we get started with this loop. We want to get at least 1 arpeggio down for each chord. There's something weird that's happening in this song over the dominant 7th chord, and there's also the harmonic minor scale over that same chord. So let's start with the harmonic minor scale. When we have a dominant 7th chord that resolves to a minor chord, that's an example of the harmonic minor scale cadence. So this shape that I was talking about has to be modified when that chord rolls around, because if you notice, the G7 chord has a B natural in it. That's a major 3rd. So that is the 7th note of the minor scale raised up. That's what harmonic minor is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Instead of a minor 7th, we raise it up, usually only over the 5 chord, and then we resolve it. So we have Spanish kind of sound, right? But the melody of Blue Bossa goes like this. Watch this. B flat. So there's a B flat note, and it's written into the melody on purpose over that G7 chord. So we have kind of a disagreement there with the chords. We have a major 3rd in that dominant 7th chord G7, and then a minor 3rd here. We'll call it a sharp 9 because the number 3 is already taken, so we're going to call that an extension. That's what we call the Jimi Hendrix chord. This thing, a dominant 7th chord with this bluesy note. And so this is a great lesson in that if you're not used to the harmonic minor scale yet, or you don't really get that idea, the song doesn't even do it. Like he doesn't, we probably want to, if I were soloing, I would play a B natural over that G7 chord, but the melody doesn't do it. So that's proof to us that we don't have to do it. And if we don't do it, we can just say, hey, I played a sharp 9. Don't get hung up on the harmonic minor scale. It's something that we want to know, but every note is available to us. And for now, I think the most important thing is getting our main shapes down, which is the major and minor scale shapes. Let's look at all of the patterns real quick in the key of C minor. So we have okay, then here's our next position. Okay, the next one will be, then we have this. You might be familiar with this one, called the minor box, because the lowest note is the root of the minor scale. That's where the pentatonic stuff can happen. So if you know any pentatonic licks, that's the place to do them. Okay, and then a lot of people call this the major scale box. And then we're we're back where we started. So those same 5 shapes, of course, are gonna be connected in the same way in the key of D flat. We have our C form major scale here in the first position, we talked about earlier. Okay, now we have this. Call this the A form if you like. Okay, now we're in that minor box, or we could call this the G form major scale. And then we have this is the E form major scale. And then we end with our D form. That D form we can play 2 ways. There's 5 ways to do everything, but then there's combinations of those 5 ways, which is, you know, more of a problem. But we can go like this, out of position, and then come back, or we can stretch our pinky out. Depends on kind of where you're going to when you're improvising. But let's just look at the basic arpeggios for each of these. So if we were down here in this position, for the C minor, we're gonna play the A minor form of C minor. If you wanna make it a minor 7th, which on the lead sheet almost always says C minor 7, we have this 5th, perfect 5th, and a minor 7th there. Come back to the root, I think is good, just to get your fingers and your eyes used to knowing that this is the root, not that. It's easy to make that mistake because when we do this, that looks like the pentatonic scale, but it isn't. It's actually major pentatonic on a different root note. This is a minor 7th arpeggio. Here for the 4 chord, we can go down here to this guy, but if you want to stay in this box, it would look like this. Being right there. There's that chord. D minor 7 flat 5, we can just play the arpeggio of an F minor if you're not used to that one. I would say it's more important to know, of course, a minor arpeggio than it is a minor 7 flat 5 because we can disregard this chord a lot. We can pretend it's the 4, or you could just go straight to the 5, and some people do that too. They just kind of ignore it. So for a minor 7 flat 5, we would have this shape. That is also the notes of an F minor 6 chord. A minor 6 and a minor 7 flat 5 are chord synonyms. They have the same exact notes. So F minor 6 is the same as D minor 7 flat 5. Then for G7, we would have this. That's an E form arpeggio. And now the song shifts to the key of D flat major, so let's go down. Same shape, right? So our 2, we already know this one. We played it a minute ago. That's E flat minor 7. Then for A flat 7, that's our 5, we would have that's based on the G form. And then our 1 chord, D flat major 7, we got we're just playing the straight up minor scale for C minor. When G7 rolls around, try to play the harmonic minor scale. That is, take the 7th note, which is B flat, and make it B natural. Then we go to D flat major and just play straight up in the key of D flat major and round and round and round. You have to really listen for when that key change comes in. So here comes a loop. Time to get your guitar and work on your fretboard mastery.